I never thought a single text could unravel my life. It was 2 a.m. My phone buzzing like a hornet on my nightstand. And the message from my roommate. Ethan. Lit up the screen. I know who you really are. Caleb. We need to talk. My heart stopped. The kind of stop that makes your chest feel like it's caving in. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I'd spent 2 years at UCLA crafting the perfect image, Caleb Harper. The charming communications major who could talk his way into any heart. I was the guy who always had a date, a smirk, and a story to spin, never tied down, never vulnerable. But Ethan, my roommate since freshman year, had just ripped the curtain off my carefully staged life. He'd seen through the charm, the half-truths, the way I juggled relationships like a circus act. And now, sitting in our cramped dorm room, with his laptop glowing and his eyes boring into me, I felt like a fraud exposed under a spotlight. We'd been friends close, but I kept him at arm's length, like I did with everyone. Ethan was different, though. Quiet, whip-smart, with a knack for noticing details others missed. He was a communications major too, but while I used words to seduce, he used them to uncover truths. His brown eyes, framed by those dorky glasses, always seemed to see more than I wanted. And tonight, they saw everything. Caleb, he said, his voice steady but laced with something raw. I found your messages. All of them. To Sarah. To Mia. To that guy from the coffee shop. You've been playing them all. He pushed his laptop toward me, open to a folder labeled Caleb's Lies. Screenshots of my texts, emails, even voice memos I'd sent to 6 people, each one tailored to make them feel special, chosen. My stomach churned. I'd been careless, leaving my phone unlocked, my secrets unguarded. I started, but the words died. What could I say? That it was just fun. That I didn't mean to hurt anyone. The truth was, I didn't know why I did it. Maybe it was the thrill, the power of being wanted. Maybe it was because being wanted was the only way I knew how to feel alive. Ethan leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. You're not just a player, Caleb. You're a liar. And I thought, he paused, his jaw tightening. I thought you were better than that. The air in the room felt thick, like I couldn't breathe it in. I wanted to bolt, to laugh it off, to charm my way out like I always did. But Ethan's gaze pinned me in place. For the first time, I saw something in his eyes I hadn't noticed before: disappointment. Yes, but also something deeper. Something that made my chest ache in a way I didn't understand. I'm sorry, I muttered, the words feeling foreign. I wasn't the apologizing type. But Ethan wasn't just anyone. He was the guy who stayed up late helping me study for exams, who laughed at my terrible jokes, who made our dorm feel like home. And now, he was the guy who'd caught me red-handed. He shook his head. Sorry doesn't fix this. You've been lying to everyone, including me. I thought we were friends. Caleb. Real friends. We are, I said, too quickly. You're the only one I stopped, the words catching in my throat. The only one I what? Cared about. Trusted. The truth was, I didn't know how to finish that sentence. I'd spent so long hiding behind my charm that I didn't know what was real anymore. Ethan stood, grabbing his jacket. I need air. You figure out what you're going to do about this. He walked out, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me alone with his laptop and the weight of my own lies. I sat there for hours, staring at the screen, scrolling through the evidence of my deception. Each message was a reminder of how I'd played with people's feelings, how I'd made them believe I was someone I wasn't. But the worst part, realizing that the one person I never wanted to hurt was the one who'd seen it all. The next morning, I found Ethan at the campus coffee shop, his usual spot by the window. He was hunched over a book, his glasses slipping down his nose. I slid into the seat across from him, my heart pounding. "Can we talk?" I asked. He didn't look up. "You've got 5 minutes." I took a deep breath. "I messed up, Ethan. I know that. But I need you to understand something. I never meant to lie to you. You're not like the others." He finally met my eyes. And for a moment, I saw a flicker of something hope. Maybe. Or hurt. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth?" he asked. "Why hide who you are?" "Because I was scared," I wanted to say. Scared of being seen. Of being known. Of losing the one person who made me feel like I could be more than a charming facade. But I didn't say that. Not yet. Instead, I reached across the table, my hand brushing his. "Give me a chance to make this right," I said. "Please." He didn't pull away, but he didn't answer either. And in that silence, I felt something shift inside me, a crack in the walls I'd built. A glimpse of something real. For the first time, I wanted to be honest. Not just with Ethan, but with myself. The days after Ethan's confrontation felt like walking on glass. Every step was cautious. Every word weighed. I stopped texting Sarah, Mia, and the others, letting their messages pile up unanswered. It wasn't just guilt, it was the realization that none of them mattered the way Ethan did. But he wasn't making it easy. He'd come back to the dorm that night, but his silence was louder than any argument. He'd work at his desk, headphones on, or leave early for classes, leaving me with nothing but my thoughts and the growing ache in my chest. I wasn't used to this. I was Caleb Harper, the guy who always had a plan, a smile, a way out. But Ethan had dismantled that version of me, and I didn't know how to rebuild. I spent hours replaying our conversation, his words cutting deeper each time. "I thought you were better than that." Had I ever been? Or was I just a collection of lies, polished to look like something worthwhile? One night, I couldn't take the silence anymore. Ethan was sprawled on his bed, scrolling through his phone, the blue light casting shadows on his face. I sat on the edge of my bed, facing him. "Ethan," I started, my voice rough. "Can we talk? Really talk?" He glanced up, his expression guarded. "What's there to say? Caleb, you've been playing everyone, including me. What's the truth even look like for you?" The question hit like a punch. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, trying to find the words. "The truth is, I'm a mess. I've been running from who I am for so long. I don't even know anymore. But with you," I hesitated, my heart racing. "With you, I want to figure it out." He set his phone down, his eyes searching mine. "Why me?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost vulnerable. "Why does it matter what I think?" "Because you see me," I thought. "Because you're the only one who ever has." But saying that felt too raw, too exposed. Instead, I said, "Because you're the only one who's ever called me out and still stuck around." He didn't smile, but his shoulders relaxed. Just a fraction. "I'm not here to fix you, Caleb. You've got to do that yourself." "I know," I said, "but I don't want to lose you while I'm trying." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The dorm was quiet, save for the hum of the mini fridge in the corner. Then Ethan sighed, pushing his glasses up. "You've got one shot," he said. "Don't waste it." That was all I needed, a crack in the door, a chance to prove I could be more than the player he'd exposed. Over the next week, I tried to show it. I stopped flirting with strangers, deleted my dating apps, and started being honest, painfully, awkwardly honest. I told Ethan about my childhood in Chicago, How my dad's absence left me chasing approval from anyone who'd give it. I told him about the first time I realized I was attracted to guys. How I buried it under layers of charm and denial. He listened, sometimes asking questions, sometimes just nodding. And with every conversation, I felt the walls I'd built start to crumble. One evening, we were walking back from the library, the campus lit by golden streetlights. Ethan was ranting about a professor's outdated syllabus, his hands waving animatedly. I couldn't help but smile. He was so alive when he talked, so unapologetically himself. Without thinking, I said, "You're kind of amazing. You know that." He stopped mid-step, his cheeks flushing. "Don't do that," he said, but there was no bite in his voice. "Do what?" I asked, stepping closer. "Charm me," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "I'm not one of your conquests." "I'm not trying to charm you," I said, and for once, it was true. "I'm just saying what I feel." He looked at me for a long moment, like he was trying to decide whether to believe me. Then he turned and kept walking, but I caught the faintest smile on his lips. It was enough to keep me going, to make me believe I could be someone he'd trust again. But trust is fragile, and I was about to learn how easily it could break. A week later, I got a text from Mia, one of the girls I'd been stringing along. "Saw you with Ethan. Is that why you ghosted me?" Attached was a photo of us at the coffee shop, my hand on his, our faces too close for it to be casual. My stomach dropped. Mia wasn't just hurt, she was angry. And she had the kind of vindictive streak that could turn a private moment into public humiliation. By the next morning, the photo was everywhere, posted on X, shared across group chats, captioned with accusations that painted me as a liar and a cheat. The campus buzzed with whispers, and I felt the weight of every stare. But worse than the gossip was Ethan's reaction. He saw the post during class, his face paling as he scrolled through the comments. "Caleb," he said, his voice low, "did you know about this?" "I didn't," I said, desperation creeping in. "Mia's just trying to get back at me. I swear." "Ethan, Stop." He cut me off, standing abruptly. "I need space." He walked out of the lecture hall, leaving me with a sinking feeling that I'd just lost the one thing I was starting to realize I couldn't live without. The fallout from Mia's post was relentless. By noon, my phone was flooded with notifications, angry texts, mocking memes, even messages from people I barely knew calling me out. The campus felt like a minefield, every glance a potential explosion. But none of it hurt as much as Ethan's absence. He hadn't come back to the dorm that night, crashing at a friend's place instead. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every mistake I'd made. How had I let it get this far? How had I let him slip away? I tried texting him, but my messages went unanswered. "Ethan, please, let's talk. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen." Nothing. The silence was worse than any argument, because it meant he was done with me, done with us. I'd spent so long hiding my real feelings that now, when I wanted to be honest, I didn't know how to make him believe me. The next day, I found him in the communications building, hunched over a table in the study lounge. His laptop was open, but he wasn't working, just staring at the screen, his jaw tight. I slid into the seat across from him, ignoring the knot in my stomach. "Ethan," I said, keeping my voice low, "I know you're mad, but this wasn't my fault. Mia twisted everything." He didn't look up. "It's not about Mia," he said, his voice flat. "It's about you. You keep saying you're sorry, but you're still not telling me the whole truth. Who are you, Caleb? Really?" The question stung, because I didn't have an answer. I'd spent years being whoever people wanted charming, confident, untouchable. But with Ethan, I wanted to be real, and I didn't know how. I'm trying to figure that out, I admitted. But I need you to help me. I need you to believe I can change. He finally met my eyes, and the hurt in his gaze made my chest ache. I want to believe you, he said. But every time I think I know you, something else comes up. How do I trust you after all this? I leaned forward, desperate to close the distance between us. Because I'm done hiding. From you. From everyone. That photo Mia meant it to hurt me. But it's not what she thinks. When I was with you at the coffee shop, I wasn't playing a game. I was feeling something real. His eyes widened. Just for a moment. Before he looked away. Don't say things you don't mean. He muttered. I mean it. I said, my voice breaking. Ethan, you're the only one who's ever made me want to be honest. I'm not good at this. But I'm trying. For you. He didn't respond. But he didn't leave either. We sat there. The silence heavy, but not as suffocating as before. Finally, he sighed. I need time. Caleb. This isn't just about you. It's about me too. I nodded, even though it felt like my heart was being squeezed. Take all the time you need. I'll be here. The next few weeks were a blur of awkward encounters and cautious steps. I threw myself into fixing the mess I'd made, apologizing to Sarah, Mia, and the others. Not with charm, but with raw honesty. Some forgave me. Others didn't. I didn't care as much as I thought I would. My focus was Ethan. I started small, bringing him coffee, leaving notes on his desk with dumb jokes, sitting with him in the library even when he barely spoke. Slowly, he started to thaw. A smile here, a laugh there, a glance that lingered just a second too long. One night, we were studying in the dorm, the tension between us softer now, like a bruise starting to fade. Ethan was explaining semiotics, his hands moving as he talked, his face lit up with passion. I couldn't stop watching him, the way his glasses slipped, the way his voice carried a quiet strength. Without thinking, I reached out, tucking a strand of his hair behind his ear. He froze, his eyes locking with mine. Caleb, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. What are you doing? Being honest, I said, my heart pounding. I like you, Ethan. Not as a game, not as a friend. I like you. For a moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. Then, slowly, he leaned forward, his hand brushing mine. You're a mess. You know that, he said, but there was a warmth in his voice I hadn't heard in weeks. Yeah, I said, smiling. But I'm your mess. If you'll have me. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he closed the distance between us, his lips brushing mine in a kiss that was tentative, then sure, like he was finally letting himself believe me. It was my first real kiss, not a performance, not a conquest, just us. And in that moment, I knew I'd never go back to being the player I'd been. Kissing Ethan changed everything. It wasn't just the warmth of his lips or the way his fingers curled into my shirt. It was the feeling of finally being seen. Not as Caleb the charmer, but as Caleb, flaws and all. We pulled back, breathless, our foreheads touching, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to fill the silence with a clever line. I just wanted to stay there, in that moment, with him. But life doesn't pause for perfect moments. The next morning, reality crashed back in. The photo Mia posted was still circulating, and now it had a new caption, Caleb's new target. Poor guy doesn't know what's coming. My stomach twisted. Ethan hadn't seen it. Yeath was still asleep, his glasses crooked on the nightstand, but I knew it would hurt him. He'd just started to trust me, and this could ruin everything. I spent the day trying to contain the damage. I messaged Mia, not with excuses, but with an apology, asking her to take the post down. She didn't respond. I reported it on X, but the platform was slow to act. By afternoon, Ethan had seen it. I found him in the dorm, sitting on his bed, his laptop closed for once. "You saw it," I said, my voice heavy. He nodded, not meeting my eyes. "It's not just the photo, Caleb. It's the idea that people think I'm just another name on your list." "You're not," I said, sitting beside him. "You're nothing like them. You're everything." He let out a bitter laugh. "That's what you say now. But how do I know this isn't just you being you? Charming, convincing, making me feel special until you get bored." His words cut deeper than I expected. I wanted to argue, to promise, but promises felt cheap after everything I'd done. Instead, I took his hand, holding it tightly. "I can't undo what I did," I said, "but I can show you, every day, that you're not a game to me. You're the realest thing I've ever had." He looked at our joined hands, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "I want to believe you," he said softly, "but I'm scared." "Me too," I admitted. "I've never done this before, caring about someone like this. But I'm in, Ethan. All in." He didn't say anything, but he didn't pull away either. That night, we watched a movie in the dorm, sitting closer than we ever had before. It wasn't a fix, not completely, but it was a start. The weeks that followed were a balancing act. We were figuring out what us meant: stolen kisses in the dorm, late night talks about everything and nothing, moments where I'd catch him smiling at me and feel my heart skip. But the gossip lingered, and so did Ethan's doubts. He'd tense up when someone stared too long or when a notification pinged on his phone. I couldn't blame him. Trust takes time, especially when you've been burned. One day, we were walking across campus when a guy from our comms class, Jake, stopped us. "So, you two are a thing now?" he asked, his tone half curious, half mocking. Ethan stiffened, but I stepped forward, my hand brushing his. "Yeah," I said, my voice steady. "We are." Jake raised an eyebrow, smirking. "Didn't peg you for the settling down type, Harper." "I wasn't," I said, looking at Ethan. "Until I met the right person." Ethan's eyes softened, and for the first time, I saw something like pride in his expression. Jake shrugged and walked off, but the moment stuck with me. I'd spent so long hiding who I was, my feelings, my fears, my truth, but standing there with Ethan, I felt like I was finally stepping into the light. That night, we talked about the future, something I'd always avoided. Ethan wanted to work in investigative journalism, uncovering truths that mattered. I didn't have a clear path. Communications had always been a means to an end, a way to charm my way through life. But with Ethan, I started to see it differently. Maybe I could use my words for something real, something that didn't hurt people. "I want to be better," I told him, lying on my bed, staring at the ceiling. "Not just for you, but for me." He rolled onto his side, facing me. "You already are," he said. "You just have to believe it." His words stayed with me, a quiet anchor in the storm of my doubts. But storms don't always pass quietly, and ours was about to get worse. A week later, I got an email from the university's student conduct office. Someone had filed a complaint, accusing me of harassment based on the messages Mia had leaked. The email was cold, formal, and terrifying. If they ruled against me, I could lose my scholarship, my place at UCLA, everything. I showed it to Ethan, my hand shaking. "What do I do?" I asked. He read it, his face unreadable. Then he set the laptop down and looked at me. "We fight it," he said. "Together." The email from the student conduct office hung over me like a guillotine. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything but the words, allegations of harassment, potential disciplinary action. Ethan was my lifeline, his calm determination pulling me through the panic. He didn't just say we'd fight it, meant it. He spent hours researching university policies, digging into the screenshots Mia had shared, looking for anything to prove I wasn't the monster they were making me out to be. "Caleb," he said one night, his laptop glowing in the dark of our dorm. "These messages don't show harassment. They show you being a jerk. Sure, but nothing here crosses the line into what they're claiming. We can fight this." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. What if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm just lying again? He reached for my hand, his grip steady. "They'll believe us because we're telling the truth. And I'm not letting you face this alone." His words were a lifeline, but they also scared me. Ethan was putting himself on the line for me, risking his own reputation to defend someone who'd spent years building a rap sheet of broken hearts. I didn't deserve him, not yet, but I was determined to try. We prepared for the hearing like it was a war. Ethan helped me draft a statement. Not the polished spin I was used to, but something raw and honest. I admitted to my mistakes, owned up to the games I'd played, but made it clear I'd never intended to harm anyone. Ethan reached out to Sarah and a few others, asking if they'd speak on my behalf. To my surprise, Sarah agreed. "You were an ass," she told me over coffee, "but you weren't malicious. I'll tell them that." The hearing was scheduled for a Friday, and the night before, I was a wreck. Ethan found me pacing the dorm, my hands tangled in my hair. "Hey," he said, pulling me to sit on the couch. "You've got this. We've got this." I shook my head. What if I lose everything? My scholarship, my degree. You're not losing me," he said firmly. "No matter what happens tomorrow, I'm here." I looked at him, his eyes steady behind his glasses, and felt something break open inside me. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why are you doing this for me?" He hesitated, then cupped my face in his hands. "Because I see you, Caleb. The real you, not the act. And I love that guy." The word love hit me like a tidal wave. I'd heard it before, thrown around in flirty texts or drunken confessions, but never like this, never so raw, so real. I kissed him, hard and desperate, pouring everything I couldn't say into it. He kissed me back, and for a moment, the world outside our dorm didn't exist. The hearing was brutal. The panel, 3 professors and a student rep, grilled me for hours. They showed the screenshots, read my messages aloud, each one a reminder of the person I'd been. But Ethan was there, sitting in the back, his presence a quiet strength. When it was my turn to speak, I stood, my voice shaking but clear. "I'm not proud of who I was," I said. "I hurt people, and I'm sorry. But I'm trying to be better, and I'm here to tell the truth, not to hide from it." Sarah spoke next, calm and composed, explaining that while I'd been dishonest, I'd never pressured or harassed her. Ethan submitted a written statement, detailing how he'd confronted me and how I'd changed since. The panel listened, their faces unreadable, and when it was over, they told me they'd deliberate and let me know. The wait was agony. Ethan and I spent the weekend in limbo, trying to distract ourselves with movies and takeout. But the tension was palpable. On Sunday night, as we sat on his bed, he turned to me. "Whatever happens," he said, "you're not that guy anymore. You know that, right?" I wanted to believe him, but the fear was still there, clawing at me. What if they don't see it that way? I asked. Then we keep fighting, he said. But you're not alone in this. Monday morning, the email came. I was cleared of harassment charges, but I'd been placed on academic probation for violating the university's code of conduct. It wasn't a win, but it wasn't a loss either. I could stay at UCLA, keep my scholarship, keep trying to be the person Ethan believed I could be. I showed him the email, and he pulled me into a hug, his arms tight around me. Told you, he whispered. We got this. But even as relief flooded through me, a new fear crept in. Ethan had seen me at my worst, fought for me, loved me despite it all. Now, I had to prove I was worthy of that love, not just to him, but to myself. The probation was a wake-up call, but it wasn't the end of the storm. The campus still buzzed with whispers, and every time I walked into a classroom, I felt eyes on me. Ethan was my anchor, but even he couldn't shield me from the fallout. People had long memories, and my past as a player wasn't something they'd forget overnight. I didn't blame them, I'd earned the skepticism, but I was determined to rewrite the story, one honest step at a time. Ethan and I were closer than ever, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. We'd kiss, laugh, argue over stupid things like whose turn it was to do dishes. But there were moments when his doubts would surface. A stray comment from a classmate, a notification from an old fling, small things that reminded him of the Caleb I used to be. I couldn't erase my past, but I could show him I was different now. One afternoon, we were studying in the library when he got a text. His face tightened, and he shoved his phone into his pocket. What's wrong? I asked, my heart sinking. Nothing, he said, too quickly. Ethan, I pressed. Talk to me. He sighed, pulling out his phone and showing me the screen. It was a message from Jake, the guy from our comms class. Heard Caleb's still playing the field. Watch your back. Attached was a screenshot of a flirty text I'd sent months ago, before Ethan and I were anything more than roommates. I felt sick. That's old. Ethan. You know that. I haven't. I know. He cut me off. His voice strained. But it's hard. Okay. Every time I think we're good, something like this pops up. It's like your past is always there, waiting to screw us up. I wanted to argue, to tell him it didn't matter, but I saw the hurt in his eyes. Instead, I took his hand. I can't change what I did, I said. But I can promise you this, you're the only one I want. The only one I've ever really wanted. He looked at me, his expression softening. I want to believe you, he said. I do. But you've got to understand how hard it is to trust you completely. I get it, I said. And I'll keep proving it. Every day, until you don't have to wonder. He nodded, squeezing my hand. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was enough for now. We went back to studying, but I could feel the weight of his words. Trust wasn't something I could demand, it was something I had to earn. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into being the person I wanted to be. I joined a campus group for LGBTQ students, not just to support Ethan, but to understand myself better. I'd spent so long dodging my feelings for guys, burying them under flings with girls, that I hadn't let myself explore who I really was. The group was a safe space, a place to listen and learn, and it made me realize how much I'd been running from. Ethan came with me to a few meetings, and seeing him reopen, confident, unapologetically himself, made me fall for him even harder. One night, after a meeting, we walked back to the dorm under a sky full of stars. You're different, he said, his voice quiet. Not just with me, but with yourself. I'm trying, I said, smiling. You make me want to be better. He stopped walking, turning to face me. You don't have to be perfect, Caleb. Just be you. The real you. I kissed him then, under the streetlights, not caring who saw. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a promise not just to him, but to myself. But promises are tested, and ours was about to face its biggest challenge. A week later, I got a call from my mom. She'd seen the ex post, the rumors, everything. Caleb, she said, her voice tight. What's going on? Are you with a guy? I froze, my heart pounding. I'd never told my family about my feelings for guys. Not because I thought they'd reject me, but because I hadn't been ready to face it myself. Now, with Ethan in my life, I couldn't hide anymore. Yeah, I said, my voice shaking. His name's Ethan. He's important to me. There was a long silence, then a sigh. I don't understand, she said. But I love you. Just be careful, okay? Her words weren't perfect, but they were enough. I hung up, feeling lighter, like I'd shed another layer of the old Caleb. When I told Ethan, he hugged me, his arms warm and steady. I'm proud of you, he said. But not everyone was as accepting. The next day, I got a text from my older brother. Mark, heard you're gay now. What the hell? Caleb. The words stung, and I didn't know how to respond. Ethan saw my face and took the phone from my hand. You don't have to answer him now, he said. But when you're ready, I'll be here. I nodded, grateful for him in a way I couldn't put into words. But deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Coming out, being honest, loving Ethan was all new, and it was terrifying. But for the first time, I wasn't running. Coming out to my mom was one thing. Facing my brother's judgment was another. Mark's text sat unanswered on my phone, a constant reminder that not everyone would accept this new version of me. I wanted to call him, to explain, but every time I tried, my throat closed up. Ethan noticed. Of course, Say always noticed. You don't have to do it alone, he said one night, sitting cross-legged on my bed. But you do have to do it eventually. He was right, but that didn't make it easier. I spent days drafting a response, each version sounding too defensive or too weak. Finally, Ethan took my phone and typed, Mark, I'm still me. Just figuring out who that is. Can we talk? Simple, direct, honest, everything I wasn't used to being. I hit send before I could overthink it. Mark didn't reply right away, and the waiting was torture. But Ethan kept me grounded, dragging me to classes, making me laugh with his terrible impressions of our professors. Being with him felt like breathing after years of holding my breath. We'd walk across campus holding hands, ignoring the occasional stares. And every time he smiled at me, I felt like I could face anything. But the past has a way of creeping back. One evening, I got an email from the student conduct office again. They'd received a new complaint, this time from Jake, claiming I'd been manipulative in our comms class group project. It was a lie, but it was enough to reopen the investigation. My probation meant I was already on thin ice, and this could tip me over. I showed Ethan, my hands trembling. This is bullshit, I said. Jake's just pissed because I called him out in class last week. Ethan read the email, his jaw tight. He's trying to hurt you, he said. But we've been through this before. We'll fight it. This time, though, it felt different. The first hearing had been about my past. This was about who I was now. I wasn't sure I could prove I'd changed. Not when people like Jake were determined to see the worst in me. Ethan, though, didn't waver. He helped me gather evidence, our group project notes, emails, even statements from other classmates who'd seen Jake's grudge in action. The night before the second hearing, we stayed up late, going over my statement. Ethan was sprawled on the floor, papers scattered around him, his glasses fogged from too much coffee. "You're going to be fine," he said, looking up at me. "You're not that guy anymore." I wanted to believe him, but the fear was overwhelming. What if they don't see it? I asked. What if I lose everything? He crawled over, sitting beside me. "You won't lose me," he said. "And that's the only thing that matters. Right?" I laughed, despite myself. "You're such a sap." "Only for you," he said, grinning. He kissed me, and for a moment, the fear melted away. The hearing was less brutal than the first, but still grueling. Jake's accusations were flimsy, but his confidence made them sound convincing. I presented my evidence, kept my voice steady, and told the truth. Ethan was there again, his presence a quiet reminder that I wasn't alone. When it was over, the panel said they'd deliberate, and I left feeling drained but hopeful. A week later, the verdict came. The complaint was dismissed. Jake got a warning for filing a false report, and my probation was lifted. I read the email in the dorm, Ethan leaning over my shoulder. "Told you," he said, his voice warm with relief. I turned to him, pulling him into a hug. "I couldn't have done this without you," I said. "You would have," he said, "but I'm glad you didn't have to." That night, we celebrated with cheap pizza and a marathon of Ethan's favorite sci-fi movies. As we sat on the couch, his head resting on my shoulder, I realized how much had changed. I wasn't just Caleb, the player, anymore. I was Caleb, Ethan's boyfriend, someone who was trying to be better every day. But life doesn't wrap things up neatly. Mark finally called, his voice gruff but not angry. "I don't get it," he said, "but you're my brother. I'm not going anywhere." It wasn't acceptance, not fully, but it was a start. I told Ethan, and he squeezed my hand. "One step at a time," he said. And that's what it was, one step at a time. With Ethan, with my family, with myself. I was learning to live without the mask, to love without the games. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and worth every second. The months that followed felt like a new chapter, one I was writing with Ethan by my side. We weren't perfect. There were still arguments, doubts, moments when my past cast a shadow. But we faced them together, and that made all the difference. I started volunteering with the LGBTQ group, helping organize events, sharing my story to show others they weren't alone. It wasn't just about redemption. It was about finding a purpose beyond myself. Ethan was thriving too. He landed an internship at a local news outlet, using his knack for uncovering truths to write stories that mattered. I'd watch him work, his brow furrowed, his fingers flying over his laptop, and feel a swell of pride. He was changing the world, one word at a time, and I wanted to be part of that. One spring evening, we sat on the roof of our dorm, the Los Angeles skyline glittering below. Ethan had a blanket draped over his shoulders, his glasses reflecting the city lights. "What's next for you, Caleb?" he asked, his voice soft. "After graduation, I mean." I leaned back, staring at the stars. "I don't know yet," I said. "Maybe something in public relations, but not the sleazy kind. Something real, like what you do." He smiled, nudging my shoulder. "You're already doing real things. Look at you with the group. With me. You're not the guy you were a year ago." I turned to him, my heart full. "That's because of you," I said. "You saw something in me I didn't even know was there." He shook his head. "I just held up a mirror. You did the rest." I kissed him then, slow and sure, the city humming around us. It wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise. A future. A life I hadn't dared to imagine before. I'd spent so long running from who I was, chasing approval, playing games with people's hearts. But with Ethan, I'd found something better, the courage to be myself. The next day, I got a call from my mom. She wanted to meet Ethan, to see the person who'd changed her son's life. I was nervous, but Ethan was calm, his usual steady self. We drove to my hometown for the weekend, and when my mom hugged him, I saw tears in her eyes. "You're good for him," she told Ethan later, when she thought I wasn't listening. "Thank you." Mark was there too, quieter than usual, but trying. He didn't say much, but he shook Ethan's hand, and that was enough for now. On the drive back, Ethan squeezed my knee. "Your family's not so bad," he said, grinning. "They're getting there," I said, smiling back. Graduation came faster than I expected. Ethan and I stood together in our caps and gowns, the sun beating down on the UCLA campus. As we tossed our caps into the air, I looked at him, his glasses crooked. His smile wide, and knew I'd found something worth more than any degree: a partner, a home, a truth I could live with. That night, we sat in our empty dorm, boxes packed, ready to move into a tiny apartment off campus. "We did it," Ethan said, leaning against me. "We're just getting started," I replied, kissing his forehead. And we were. The player was gone, replaced by someone who loved fiercely. Honestly. Completely. Ethan had exposed me, not just to the world, but to myself. And in doing so, he'd given me the chance to become someone I could be proud of, someone who could love him back. Not with games or lies, but with every piece of my heart.